Welcome to the MicroLife Cafe. I'm your host, Sarah from MicroLife Fertilizers. We're talking all things organic horticulture and beyond, so pull up a chair and pour up a cup with us. Summer is coming and your yard needs a game plan. Today we're talking about water quality, native plants, and how what's coming out of your hose affects everything growing in your garden. We've got the MicroLife owner and organic expert, Mike Serant, answering the questions on all our minds. How can we get ready for the Texas summer in our lawns and gardens? Let's get into it. Hello, Mike. Welcome back. Thank you for coming on again today. How are you?
Sarah, I'm doing great. Thank you for this opportunity to be with you.
Of course.
It's always fun.
Always fun. So let's talk about what is in our water. We've been talking about it a lot around the office, but I just want to kind of get some great information from you. Starting off with, how does the quality of our tap water here in Houston affect the plants we're growing, and how much water do they really need?
Sure. Great question. As you know, when I give lectures, I always bring in human health, and I really focus in on the importance of the quality of the food. Nutrient dense, pesticide free, how critical that is to maintain the human body. And I've been missing something, and this applies to landscapes as well as the human body, is that if you drink municipal water, and if you're in any type of town, city, burg, you are drinking municipal water, the same water you're using for your plants, it is not good quality water. And so if we're really trying to get ourselves into good human health, I know this is kind of off the subject, but I want people to really consider what kind of water they're drinking. Get filtered water, get spring water, because the water that we drink from municipalities that we're putting on our landscape, it's really not good water. It's kind of like chemotherapy. You have to have it or the plants will die, but the water also kind of punishes the soil, the biology, and the plants. And you might say, well, why is that? Well, let's think about what's in our water. They're afraid of diseases, so they put in antibiotics into our water. Okay, that's chlorine and chloramine. And I've talked to water engineers, and what's in our water scares them. That's why they're upping the dose of the disease fighters.
Okay.
Well, those disease fighters, when we drink them as humans, suppresses our gut microbiome, our natural defense. It also suppresses the biology in the soil, and we need biology in the soil to have healthy plants. So the antibiotics going into the soil, into the human body, it's just not good. It gets worse than that. There's what we call salts, soluble salts in the water. And so what that's going to do, it's going to raise the pH of our landscape. And most of our landscape in the Houston, Dallas, and Austin area are built on clay soils. And if it's not on native clay soils, it's brought in fill dirt. Both those type of soils already have a high pH. And pH is a measurement of what, in the probably easiest way is when the nutrients become available, all right?
Okay.
And like the human body wants a pH of like 7.5. Most plants want a pH of 6 to 7. And for plants, when the pH is in the proper range, that means if there's good minerals present, most of them become more available. So if we have high salts and we have high pH, a lot of these minerals don't become available, and that's going to make the plant have malnutrition. Plus, you're putting in antibiotics because of the tap water, which kills some of the biology, which further weakens the plants. So we can take all that, and then I think it's very important for people to know that our water systems are not designed to take out pesticides or forever chemicals. When the water systems were designed, we didn't even think about that. So when we apply municipal water to our landscapes, or we drink municipal water, we're actually drinking pesticides and forever chemicals. So we just don't want to do that, right? We want to have everything as healthy as possible. As you know, as we've talked about many times, everything is connected. Healthy soils, healthy plants, healthy people. Well, that also applies to healthy air and healthy water. So we can't get away from using municipal water. And so what we try to do is we want to try to minimize it. And there was this really famous drought in Texas. It was the drought of 2011. And when God turned off the spigot of rain in the beginning of June, he did not put it on until the end of August. And so our Houston area landscapes had nothing but municipal water to exist on. And we saw that by the time July and August was getting here, that the plants were being punished severely. I mean, yes, they had to have water, but the water wasn't of good quality. And I knew many of these properties were managed by very good horticultural managers. They were doing the very best that they could. So we want to try to minimize the use of municipal water because it's better for the soils and better for the plants. And we can do this with organics. And what we're going to do is we're going to use whatever water we put on there lasts longer, and we're going to make God's rain last longer. And so you can do this with organics. That means your plants are going to have greater vitality, greater health, less problems. Do you want problems?
No,
I don't either. I want a problem-free landscape, and I want a landscape that doesn't cost a lot of money. And so the only way you can get that is if you go organic.
Totally. Can you, this is kind of a complicated question, but can you kind of give people an idea, maybe if you have a 2,000 square foot lawn, about how much water do you really need to maintain that landscape?
Well, you're a very complicated person, so it's not surprising you would ask a complicated question. I was at a lecture by Texas AgriLife, and they were talking about how much water does a plant actually need,
Yeah.
right? So just imagine a gallon of water. You pour a gallon of water onto soil. Of that gallon of water, the plant only takes in 2%. Okay.
What?
Yeah, 2%. So that's what it needs to hydrate.
Yeah.
But it needs to be able to find the water, right? It needs to be able to have it when it gets there. Like, let's just say you need at least 10 gallons of water a week.
Sure.
Okay. You can't on a Monday drink 10 gallons of water and make it last.
Right.
So you want that water to come in as you need it. So the same thing for plants. So for plants, turf grass, ornamentals, there are lots of information that's out there that can tell you what you need. It really depends upon the season. The hotter the summer or the hotter the temperature, the faster water evaporates. So you need more water during the summer than you do during spring or fall or winter. So on average, it's going to change, but on average, you should get about in Houston, and we're not talking about native plant landscapes. We're talking about traditional landscapes with imported plants and turf grass. Probably about an inch a week is going to be sufficient. And it's very important to know that most people don't underwater. Most people do what?
Overwater.
Right. And overwatering will cause more problems than underwatering. And we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of guides out there to get the right irrigation. You can always use the screwdriver test. You know what that is?
Nope.
You get a screwdriver, pop it in the ground, take a look at it. Is there moisture on the soil? Does it go into the soil easy? You can also use the finger. How do you use the finger? Man, you got it. I tell you, you college grads or something else. And so just to measure water.
That's also how I check to see if my brownies are done in the oven.
Now, we'll say this. I grow a lot of plants in containers.
Yeah.
And I grow things like vinca and lantana. Vinca's not a native, but it survives the summer heat really well. And lantas can be a Texas native. And they perform differently in a container. Right. And I've noticed that when I plant these drought-resistant plants in container, drought-resistant plants, Texas natives sometimes, in containers, that I have to water them very, very frequently. And the reason being is that once they're in a landscape, the roots can spread out all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big key to conserving water in landscapes is to have big roots. And the way that you have big roots is you have friable soil where the roots can easily grow into a wider area and they can find available water easier.
Great information. And that leads us right into our next question. So, do you think native plants handle our local water quality better than traditional landscapes? And does that translate into real water savings?
I think you're really on target. Texas natives are becoming into their own. More people are understanding them and appreciating them. And the amount of native plants that we can have in our landscapes has really grown quite a lot. And we got to be thankful for the growers and groups like the Native Plant Society that's teaching us about how beautiful native plants are.
Yeah.
I've been working with native plants for a while. I think they're absolutely sensational. And now a lot of the plants that we grow in Houston, probably Dallas and Austin, because I've seen them there, are Chinese or Asian plants.
Okay.
And they were coming in the 70s and 80s, and they're just all over the place. Crepe myrtles is an example.
Azaleas.
Well, yeah, but there are some, you're right, there are some Texas native azaleas, but most azaleas
That's
are,
cool.
are imported. And they're trying to adapt to our client, or we're trying to get them to adapt to our client. And so they're coming from different regions. Houston, let's talk about Houston. Austin and Dallas are different. Every ecosystem is different. Houston has the propensity to have up to 50 to 55 inches of rain a year, but it's not consistent. We can get a whole lot and then we can go completely dry.
Yeah.
Whole lot, and then completely dry. So if we work with native plants that are from this area, let's say they've been in this area for 500 million years, they have adapted to the changing water systems that come into them. So they can thrive with less water than the other Asian imports, and they can handle excessive water better than the Asian inputs. And there's many people I know that really just get into the native plant scene, and they're great, and they may not water their yard irrigation at all. I mean, just 0 water per year, because their plants are sustaining themselves. Now, I would like to talk about turf grass. Turf grass is extremely important. I love turf grass. A lot of people don't. I think it's great. We need the vistas. We need the open areas. We need the diversity that turf grass brings. We need the open spaces to play ball and to have activities. Turf grass is great. Some people think that turf grass takes a lot of water. This primarily talk about St. Augustine and zoysia. It actually does not take a lot of water. If you have hurt your soil because of chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides, and most of us dealing, when we get our turf grass, we're putting on a subsoil, which is very poor quality clay soil, very, very tight, very high alkaline, very low minerals. When it's tight and compacted, it's very hard for the roots to grow through. There's practically 0 organic matter. So yes, any plant in that situation is going to say, I need lots of water. But if you change the soil, and you can do this with organics, and it's not hard, it's not expensive, and it doesn't take a long time, you can actually make the soil in which the turf grass is growing a water reservoir. And what we have calculated, that if you can add at least organic matter to at least 3%, 3% organic matter, 5 is the goal, but 3% organic matter, and you can grow your roots down 18 inches, okay? What you're doing is you're tapping into 120,000 gallons of water that's available to the plant. That water, of course, is coming through irrigation or through God's rain. And if you have this type of soil reservoir set up, that water doesn't automatically pass down, it stays in place. So we had OBA, Organic Horticulture Benefits Alliance, a nonprofit that brings in these great educators. We brought this very famous educator in March of 2026. She has a very famous saying, and her saying, she'll say, Sarah, how much water did you get last night? And the answer is, you want to be able to say, I got it all. Nothing ran off. You captured it all.
Right.
So I think with organics, and really only with organics, are you going to be able to have, and if you couple with native plants, organics and native plants, you're basically going to have a beautiful yard with a minimum amount of water. And we know that we just talked about municipal water. It's not good quality, and municipal water is expensive. And if you look at the cost of municipal water in the Houston area, buying it the cheapest way that you possibly can, and you're going to water an acre, and many developers do, that water is going to cost you $12,000, okay? $12,000 per acre in water costs.
Wow.
And you can extrapolate that per 1,000 square feet. How much is a 3,000 square foot homeowner saving water? I mean, it all works out. So you can drop that water cost at least by 25% the first year with organics. So guess what you've done? You have paid for that water savings with just a little bit of organics. So you come out way net ahead, and that completely destroys the myth that organics is more expensive.
Great answer. So, after a big Houston rain, is that free water actually doing more for our plants than anything else coming out of the tap? And what are a few ways people can save their rainwater for their plants?
Well, yes, that's a good question. We all know that after rain happens, the world just looks better.
Yeah.
Everything's been washed, everything's gotten a shower. There's oxygen in rainwater. It doesn't have all the contaminants that municipal water has. The plants know this. I mean,
Yeah.
just like you. If you drank something sour, you would say, no, I just can't do this.
Yeah.
But if you drink some really good, clean water, you go, this is great. You automatically, instinctively, physiologically, you're saying, this is great. I need more of it. Well, plants work the same way. So, yes, creation's water is just fantastic. We want to hold on to it as long as we can because it is so good. And the longer we can hold on to rainwater, the less municipal water we have to buy, which is a gain too.
Right.
So how to hold on to water? I mean, there's all sorts of things that people are doing. They're building berms, they're building rain gardens. I think the easiest thing for people to do, and you can put up rain barrels and catchment systems, all great stuff. But I think for a lot of us, the easiest thing to do is to apply organics to all beds, all turf grass area, all soils. You can do that very easily with humates. Humate's a very inexpensive way to add compost. But if you improve that soil, so what that means when you improve the soil, you're adding organic matter and you're adding biology. Let's just imagine this is your soil, okay? And it's platelets, clay platelets. They're tight together. If you can open up those platelets, now all of a sudden you've got oxygen and water that can go deep into the soil and doesn't run off the surface. Because we lose a lot of water by water runoff because this water can't infiltrate the soil. So it just sheets off. That's gravity. But if it can drop straight down, that means that water is being saved later for use. And so as we improve that soil, we're also building organic matter. Organic matter acts as sponges, and they will hold the water for the plant use. You've got good oxygen flow, so that means you're not creating a pathogenic anaerobic soil situation. It means your plant's going to be disease-free, and you're going to be building bigger roots so that plant, whatever that plant is, say an Augustine lantana, can find water over a wider area.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Organics does.
So, what would you say is the biggest water wasting mistake that Texas gardeners want to avoid this summer?
Well, that easily has to be my plant doesn't look good. Let me give it more water. So that seems to be the answer for a lot of people. Not that they're trying to do wrong, but they think that's what's needed. I was on this one property and really nice high-end memorial property. The guy was just all bent out of shape. He was just saying, oh my God, look at my landscape. It's just terrible, terrible, terrible. And I started walking on it, and what I heard was squish, 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 squish.
Yeah.
And I looked down, I saw algae, algae, algae. And I said, let's take a look at your irrigation system.
Yeah.
So we went into his garage, took a look at his irrigation system, and he had his irrigation system on for 30 minutes every day. He was just water soaking the entire property. Was he a bad person? No, he just didn't know any better. So use organics. Be mindful that when you use organics, you can cut back on water and cut back on water when you can.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So what's the smartest watering strategy for keeping a Texas yard alive without running the water bill? You said like an inch, but could you say like about how much time if you have to use your irrigation system and you're using organics and you're using some rain harvested water? About how much time do people really need to have their irrigation system turned on for, would you guess?
Okay, that is a great question. So as the season changes, cold to warm to hot, back to warm to cold, as the light goes from, 12 hours of darkness to 16 hours of darkness or whatever that is, it's important that you adjust, if you have an irrigation system, adjust your irrigation system at least once a season, okay? And an irrigation system should have a rain gauge on it, which means that if you get rain like we're experiencing right now, it tells the irrigation system not to come on, right?
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, right. And there's all sorts of weather sensors that you can get, and you may have to manually do it, but if you're mindful of the weather and you're in sync with it, then you adjust your irrigation system to what you need. And then you're asking a very interesting question, and it's kind of difficult to give one stock answer because different plants require different water, different soils have to be treated differently. But as a rule, when it gets hot, if you've got a moderately efficient irrigation system, per zone, okay, you're going to do 20 minutes 15 to 20 minutes per zone, 3 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot more affordable and doable. So I like it. So, how do MicroLife products help native plants become more drought resilient heading into the Texas summer? And how can the biology we have in our products help reduce the amount of water needed to use in a landscape?
Well, that's another great question. So MicroLife and organics, and it's important that people use good quality organics. There's a lot of money going into organics. There's some good organics, nothing like MicroLife. It's the best. But there's also some bad organics because people are trying to jump on that bandwagon. So it's important to read the label. And so organics is going to save water, whether it's native plants or Asian imports, okay,
Okay.
or northern imports. Certain hollies from North Carolina. Organics will always help improve soil, will always help monitor, regulate, and enhance water conservation. To get more specific about native plants, plants we know have been on Earth for like 500 million years.
Yeah.
So let's just say that we're talking with a Texas native. It's been here for 500 million years. So it has adapted, because I got to ask you something. 500 million years ago, was there a grounds maintenance landscape contractor back then?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't think so either. So the point of that is that creation created a system
Yes.
that the native plants grew up in. And it was not a chemical pesticide, chemical fertilizer system. It was
Yeah.
all organic, right? So plants, any plants, an Asian import, someplace from the Northeast, Texas natives, they all respond better to organics because they all originated with an organic system. So
Yeah.
organics will universally help all plants.
Great answer. I totally agree. And so let's chat a little bit about MicroLife liquids. That is one of our favorite topics for the summer because we have a huge variety of issues we deal with in the summer. Sometimes there's drought, sometimes we have hurricanes, sometimes it's just a lot of rain. So, what kind of benefits can people expect from using MicroLife liquids in their landscapes, and how do you apply them?
Well, that is another great question. So at MicroLife, we try to develop a full spectrum of quality products, granulars, liquids, wettable powders. As we learned, we've now been manufacturing MicroLife for 38 years. We started with one bag, the green 624, and we've expanded as we've learned. And organics is based on science. It's the latest in technology. Chemicals are not based on science, and there is no scientific breakthrough. The latest scientific breakthrough that they can maybe claim is that, hey, to make glyphosate more effective, let's combine it with dicamba.
Yeah.
So no, we're not that. Organics is like what's the outer edge? How do we get nutrient density into plants? How do we enhance metabolites? How do we create greater root structure? How do we create greater soil biology? How do we make all these things work? So organics is just expanded into a technical scientific marvel. I was talking to this one guy yesterday. He's a really bright guy by the name of Corey Warner. And he says, I believe in science. I want things scientifically proven. Well, guess what? Organics is scientifically proven, okay? So we have granulars, and if I had a choice between granulars or liquids, I would always go granulars as my primary base. That's like you sat down and you're eating a nice dinner. Your grilled salmon, your steamed broccoli, your Caesar salad, that is your main meal.
Mm-hmm.
But you may think, you know what? I think I want a little extra CoQ10, D3, maybe some extra vitamin C. So you do more supplements because you really want that rich experience of nutrition and health.
Yes.
So the MicroLife liquids are incredible. There's just so many good products that we've developed. And all of our specifications for our granulars, for our liquids are all on the website. We tell you everything that we put into them. They've thoroughly been tested. They've been out and used for at least 37, 35, 30 years that we've had them out there. They work exceptionally well. There's two ways you can use liquids. One way is you can put them into a watering can or a hose and sprayer or pump up sprayer, or some of our contractors use 500-gallon tanks, and you can foliar spray.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing, you just foliar spraying, and you're just covering the leaves and just moving on, moving on, moving on.
Yeah.
Extremely quick. If we were going to foliar spray this was a green wall, we're going to foliar spray this entire wall. It's going to take me maybe 10 seconds tops. It does not take a long time. So plants have pores. We call them stomates. And so these are exchange sites. And so when we're applying a liquid, it's instantly translocating into the plant right away. And some work that we did with Virginia Tech a few years ago, they were using a machine called Serant, and they were measuring photosynthesis efficiency. And when they found that when they applied Ocean Harvest to plants had a 25% greater efficiency in manufacturing photosynthesis. So just imagine you've got a filament incandescent bulb, takes a certain amount of energy, but you replace with an LED bulb.
Yeah.
You get the same amount of light at not the same expense. So if you increase the photosynthesis, that means there's more energy into the plant, and there's more energy going out into the soil system, so your biology improves. I mean, you're talking about a win-win-win situation. So we like foliars. Plants can get under stress. I think a lot of times people, when it gets hot, we don't want to go outside as much unless you're a landscape professional. And plants are having a tough time too. Best thing to do is to give them a really good feed pre-summer. And that would be something like MicroLife Humate Plus and maybe a MicroLife Green 624 or a MicroLife Hybrid. That's going to last through the summer. It's going to improve the soil. It's going to give the plants nutrient-dense arenas. It's going to save water. And then if you can, maybe for homeowners, it's late in the evening when they get home, maybe before dinner, after dinner, they get outside with a hose and sprayer and hose their plants down with something really good. The plants will absolutely adore you for it. And you kind of create a Zen moment. You know, you're saying, you are my outdoor family. I love you. You give me increased real estate value. You give me increased peace of mind. My creativity's increased. My stress is decreased. My anger's decreased. You do a lot for me. What can I do to help you so you follow your spring?
I love it. That's a great answer. And I think it's just perfectly ironic that it's raining a lot on a day where we're talking about water conservation. So I plan to reuse my rainwater to water some plants later on this week. Mike, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
My pleasure.
And we will have you on probably soon again.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it. You did a great job.
You too.